My name is Calvin Torres. I'm 44 years old, and I've been a bus driver for nearly 2 decades. I live a quiet life now, but the road here wasn't smooth. I've battled addiction, loneliness, and a past that never seemed to let go. And at the center of that past, a boy named Derek Marshall, the bully who made my childhood hell. I never thought I'd see his face again, let alone share a meal with him. Not after what he did to me in middle school. But life, as I've learned the hard way, has a way of throwing people together in the strangest places. In my case, it was a rehab facility, 29 years after he knocked my books into the mud and called me names that still echo in my head. Growing up in East Bakersfield wasn't easy. My mom worked 2 jobs, my dad disappeared before I could spell his name, and I was the quiet kid, the one with taped glasses, who read sci-fi during recess. Every school has its pack of wolves, and Derek Marshall was the alpha of ours. Taller, louder, stronger, and cruel. He'd trip me in the hall, laugh at my stutter, sometimes even shove me hard into lockers just for sport. It wasn't just physical. The worst part was how he made me feel like I didn't matter, like the world was watching and laughing too. Once, during the school's fall festival, he dumped a tray of spaghetti on my head in front of everyone. I remember the warmth of the sauce mixing with the cold of humiliation. I ran into the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and cried into my jacket sleeve while the laughter rang in my ears. That kind of shame doesn't wash off easily. There were days I'd fake being sick just to avoid school. My mom never knew why. I kept everything to myself, terrified that telling someone would only make things worse. After high school, I thought I'd escaped all that. But the truth is, what you don't heal, you carry. That invisible wound led me to drink. First on weekends, then most nights. I told myself I was relaxing, taking the edge off. But soon, I needed it just to feel normal. At 25, I missed my sister's wedding because I passed out drunk. At 30, my girlfriend left after I yelled at her for trying to throw away an empty whiskey bottle I had an odd attachment to. By 32, I'd lost 2 jobs and nearly crashed my bus with 3 kids inside because I nodded off at a red light. That day, I checked into rehab and checked out 3 weeks later, then repeated the cycle 3 more times. Each time, I told myself I'd be better. But each time, I went back to the bottle. Not because I wanted to drink, but because I didn't know how not to hurt. People think addiction is about the substance. But it's deeper. It's about pain you don't know how to speak. And I had a lot of it. And it wasn't just childhood. I had adult wounds too. Friends who ghosted me when I started spiraling. Family who said they cared but kept their distance. The silence from others echoed louder than Derek's old taunts. The 5th time I checked in, I promised myself it'd be the last. I'd burned every bridge I had. I was alone, but I didn't expect to see him sitting in the group circle. Derek Marshall, older, softer around the eyes. But I knew that jawline. And those hands, same ones that once shoved me. I froze. My palms went cold. I almost walked out. But something held me back. Maybe it was the counselor's calm voice. Maybe I was just too tired to run again. He didn't recognize me at first. But I remembered everything. Every push, every name. Every day I walked home trying to act like it didn't matter. If stories like this move you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support helps these real journeys reach others who need them. For the first 2 weeks, I avoided him like the plague. Sat on the opposite side during group, skipped meals if he was in the cafeteria. I didn't want an apology. I wanted to be invisible to him, as I always had been. But something shifted on week 3. We were paired for a trust exercise. Of all things, I was livid. But I played along. We had to hold a rope, eyes closed, and lead each other across a room. I was tense the entire time, but he was gentle, careful. And when I opened my eyes, I saw something I didn't expect. Guilt. Real, raw guilt. Later that day, I overheard him in group, talking about his daughter. How she hadn't spoken to him in years. How he used to lash out because it was the only language he knew. That hit me hard. A few nights later, he sat next to me in the common area. Didn't say a word. Just sat. I kept reading my book, but he stayed. Eventually he whispered, "I think I know who you are." And "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. I couldn't. My throat clenched, my hands trembled. But over the next few days, he kept showing up, offering coffee, nodding in support when I spoke during group, not trying too hard, just being there. One evening, we found ourselves alone in the game room. He asked if we could talk, really talk. For nearly an hour, we sat on opposite couches as he told me his story, his own abusive father, his own fears, the anger that bubbled up as a teenager with nowhere to go. I didn't excuse what he did, but I understood what made him become that person. One day, I found him crying in the stairwell, shaking. Turns out, he'd just gotten off the phone with his daughter, who told him she didn't want him back in her life. The man who once made me feel like nothing was crumpled in a heap, begging for a second chance. Something cracked open inside me. I sat beside him. We didn't talk. But in that silence, something passed between us. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe understanding. I left him a note later that day. It said, "We all want to be seen. I see you now." The next morning, he left a cup of coffee by my door, a simple thank you scribbled on the napkin. From then on, we stuck together. Same meal table, same walks. We challenged each other. He'd say, "You still hide when things hurt." I'd say, "And you pretend you've changed without doing the work." We were blunt, honest, and for once, I felt like I had a brother. Not because we were alike, but because we'd both fallen and wanted to rise. One afternoon, we laughed at a joke someone made in group therapy. It was the first time I ever saw Derek truly laugh, like a kid again, and I realized maybe that kid had never learned how to love anyone, including himself. We started volunteering in the facility's garden, pulling weeds, planting seeds. It felt like a metaphor. Ugly things being removed to make space for something better. The day we graduated the program, I stood up to share. I looked right at Derek. I said, "I used to wish I'd never see you again. Now I hope I do. Often." He cried. I did too. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to let someone show you who they can be, without the shadow of who they were. I'll never forget who Derek was, but I'm learning to believe in who he's trying to become. That night I called my sister, told her what happened. She said something I won't forget. Maybe healing doesn't come in straight lines. Maybe it comes in circles, like yours just did. Today, Derek and I talk every week. We're both sober. I drive a school bus now. He teaches carpentry at a community center. We've told our stories at youth groups, warned them that pain, if left alone, turns to poison. But shared pain? That can become something else. A bridge. Just last month, we went back to our old middle school. We spoke to a class of 8th graders. I saw a boy in the front row, small, quiet, nervous, just like I was. And as we left, he walked up to Derek and hugged him. Last week, we were invited to speak at a prison re-entry program. The audience was tough, men with hard stares and tired eyes. But when Derek talked about who he used to be and how he found grace in the most unexpected place, I saw heads nodding, tears welling. You never know where healing begins. Sometimes it's in the face you swore you'd never forgive. And sometimes that face becomes your best friend.